Well, I made a video on my Instagram for something, and was dressed up. So I figured if I'm dressed up all business-like, I might as well talk about something business-related. The return to office mandates and the push to get people away from work from home to back to the office. We all should be, I think we're all aware, it's about control. There's no real good reason to have people, when you've had them for several years, working perfectly fine and perfectly content and happy to be at home, drag them back to the office. If anything, there have been plenty of studies that show people are much more productive working from home, happier working from home. Less money is being spent on transportation, having to go out for food. Less time is wasted in traffic. People were able to spend less on childcare because they were home with their children. What it is to me, it is an element of the Matrix, because the Matrix is real. And it's about a lot of these companies wanting to centralize and know exactly where their employees are. Yes, there's also the argument to be made that they are, of course, concerned about their real estate portfolio and their holdings and trying to get the depreciation because they have to have a certain amount of occupancy in the building. Fine, fine. I don't think that's it, though. I don't think that's it at all. Because a real company or a real freedom-loving company wouldn't care in that regard. They could be 100% remote and have a much smaller office for a co-working space. What this is it's to make sure you, the employee, are not able to actually thrive and maybe make ends meet for yourself. See, what 2020 did is it sent a system shock through the world in terms of obviously all these different ways of working and all these different things that were happening, right? The lockdowns, etc. However, one of the few positive things was employees started waking up to their own power. They realized, hey, I could do my job at home. And maybe I can also do other jobs, right? People don't like to talk about the thing unsaid, but they were doing side projects. Maybe they had a little time in their day to discover that life was beyond just simply working, right? When you take out the BS conversations, the water cool talk, the commute, and you boil it down to its most basic aspects of doing your job, you can do your job and then you can have more time to enjoy life, or you might be able to leverage that time building a portfolio for yourself, making yourself more financially stable. And they didn't like that. They didn't like that. They didn't like blinking and knowing that you, Mr. Employee or Mrs. Employee, were actually potentially getting out of the system by doing more than one task, right? And I don't think it's wrong if you want to have more than one job. I think you should, if you can handle it. And what I think it is they want to make sure you're fully dependent on them, right? Every company wants to make sure that you are fully dependent on them for your bread and your butter and your wages. And when you file for your whatever it is, for whatever you need, you're using them. That's your sole source. They don't want you to have more than one source of income, right? Because if you did, then you would be able to leverage that and negotiate maybe either a better situation at your current job for yourself, or you would be able to just do your job and they wouldn't be able to harp on you to work extra hours, and they would lose the leverage they have of cutting you off from your health insurance, your food, your ability to pay for your life. Because that's what a company has when they have you by the cojones with one job at their office and they can monitor you. They don't want you to actually expand your horizons. And this is very apparent in the fact that if you look at a lot of the CEOs of these major companies, here's the key point. Look at the CEOs of these major companies, the C-suite in general, but especially the CEO. Usually, they are not just the CEO of insert Fortune 500 company here. They are also on the board of this, and they run this particular charity, and they're on this foundation's panel, and they serve as a consultant over here. You don't think those things pay? That's another job. They are working, they are doing double jobs. They are dual, triple, quintuple incomes coming in from not just their investments, but from actual salaries that they're pulling from different organizations. But not for you. Not for you. No. Rules for thee, but not for me. You see what I'm saying? So be mindful that the whole return to office thing is a sham, and it's meant not for practical purposes, but to keep an eye on you. I would say any company that insists, if you are a white collar or any type of service sector employee, there is no reason to do your job in an office. Really, there's no reason. I mean, really, the only fields would be blue collar, having to do something physical, maybe something in the service sector like food service or retail, and then of course medicine, being a surgeon, etc. Of course. But for the general 9 to 5, there's no reason. We've established that. That was proven definitively in 2020 and 2021 that there was no reason to go to an office. And if anything, an employee with time on their hands could potentially expand their horizons, and they didn't like that. So what I put to you is question everything. Question the motives of why your boss may have wanted you to come back to the office. Also question, what can I do or what can you do about pivoting towards a remote situation in the future? How can we advocate for that being the new gold standard across the board? I think companies who are innovative and who have yet to be formed, the next set of Fortune 500 companies, those entrepreneurs, they've already learned what worked and what didn't work. Now, power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. So, you don't necessarily, you might say to yourself, well, if I was the CEO, but then when you get there, who knows? But there will be a new set of companies that come in at some point. And the sun will shine again upon the employee. I know at the moment it is an employer's market. I'm very well aware of that. But these things are all cyclical. And there was a system shock in 2020. And I think there could be a positive consequence that allows for a return for a new standard being set by a new set of companies where remote is heavily encouraged, if not the actual standard. But just remember, the system currently does not appreciate that there was a remote work thing. They did not appreciate that the employee had the ability to maybe leverage their time to escape. And I just don't want anyone to forget that. You should not forget that, because for a while, the employee once more had the leverage. And I hope one day those days come again. Hopefully soon. So those were my thoughts. There you go.